Hello everyone, Mandy here with Gates of Wellness, and I wanted to do some art journaling, and I recognized that when I first started art journaling I was terrified to draw. I didn't think I had any artistic ability, really. I knew how colors kind of worked together, and that was about all that I thought I had. So one of the best ways to overcome your fear of drawing is to find inspiration from a magazine. I've got a whole stack of images here that I've pulled out from magazines because I thought they could one day make a great image, the watch for the, passage of time. I've used a cat from this Harvard Business Review previously from the same issue. I love how vibrant and interesting this is, and there's no way I could or would spend the time to draw this. They've got lots of fun images, and this one is a double pager, so it would actually work quite nicely in my art journal. So I find inspiration all over the place. This one is from Men's Health, and I just thought that was interesting. It's a beautiful silhouette, but I also really enjoy all the photos that are in here. And I thought that's a great way to honor yourself or someone else's life with a silhouette and all of these photos. I mean, they obviously can't possibly sum up an entire life in there, but I really liked it. I like the bow with the Band-Aid. Sometimes I don't know what I pull. The macaroons I thought might go nicely with the candy. And a nice reminder just to stop and smell the flowers. I thought that would be a nice image as well. But today I pulled this girl out, Go Flat or Go Foam, as an ad. So how you use images like this, you're going to need your handy dandy matte medium or matte gel, some paint brushes. Be very careful. I would prefer to rip out the image and kind of glue that in or plop that in with matte gel rather than cut it. I find that with a cut edge it leaves it's a sharp edge on your paper, excuse me, when you're done. And then we'll just need some paint and some inspiration for the background because she is floating away here with her balloons. We'll need something to give the bottom of the page some grounding, whether it's trees or, we could even do something like this, just a sketch of a skyline, an urban skyline. It doesn't need to be. It could easily be a row of trees. She could be jumping over a river or a lake or just grass, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. So I really like the image of the lady floating with her petal dress. It's really cute. So let's figure out, what do we do? I am, very first, I guess, let's just start gently ripping the image out. It does not need to be perfect in any way because we will be painting all around it. But I don't want to wreck any part of her. So if you've got some old magazines kicking around the house, or if you know anyone who recently did a vision board workshop, all of these types of things can help, and you can find inspiration pretty much anywhere. She's going to be plopped down. I'm wondering. All right, put your image someplace special where it's not going to get wet. I'm going to start with a quick thin layer of gesso just to allow me to do my background with stencils and baby wipes. And let's find my card. And just an old gift card, credit card, bank card, something plastic or thick laminated cardboard. And it doesn't have to have 100% coverage. You don't need it to be very thick. Just if we want the lift from the stencils, it will need to be just a little bit. You don't have to gesso your page. It really depends on what the effect is you're going for. But when I lift the paint through the stencil, I am going to want to see the layer of white or less paint in the back. So this is the best way to get that movement from the acrylic paint. Is just pop down a layer of gesso. So when we're thinking about our color schemes, if you're not comfortable with color, you can pick yourself up one of these handy dandy pocket color wheels, and it will just help you choose the colors that you want. And you can see here on the back, it shows you what the complementary colors are, the tetrad, triad, split complementary. So we've already got some blue in the image. So what colors go nice with blue? Whew. We could do yellow and red, with blue being the highlight. We could do green, blue, and violet, just all really nice, cool colors. I don't know. I think I might be veering to the red and the orange, or orange, yellow, yellow, orange. We'll see. I keep it on a deformed paper clip, and it hangs on one of the shelves here in my office. I'm gonna have to fix that. So, blue, 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 blue. Here I've got an orange, yellow, and an actual orange. And naphtha crimson. These are pretty vibrant colors, so let's see. We'll use those in the background. fluorescent blue, and cerulean blue. Not a lot of difference there. Phthalo blue. Turquoise blue. Brilliant blue. And what? And I'll just grab out my black and white just in case I need them. Let's see. What are my favorites here? I'll keep up brilliant blue. We might add a little bit of phthalo. I don't know, that one kind of looks a bit turquoisey. I'll leave it out too. These other ones can go away. So, image away for safety. Baby wipes, because we're going to be lifting the paint through the stencil. And find a large background stencil. It can literally be anything that you want. Well, this one might be kind of fun to get all of that. All right. Going to start with the yellow. And we're just going to get this down here. If your paint is starting to dry or thicken up, you can just give it a little spritz with your water mister. I don't think I want the yellow to go all the way down, so I'm hoping this will create almost like the image of rays of sun. Partly to honor the original image here that we're going to be using, well, that I'm going to be using. You might end up using a completely different type of image, so you'll use completely different colors. But I'm really drawn to that freshness of the image. And the flower dress, I guess I want a dress of flowers. It's really lovely. See here, I used a little bit too much paint on this side. That's all right. It's only money, right? Just joking. It's only paint. Paint and paper, which cost money. Might as well just carry this all the way through. Everywhere we have yellow. going to give this a shot of heat before I add my next color, because I don't want them to mix, and I don't want to wipe off the yellow. Still a little wet in some spots, but that is okay. Adding some more of the orange, and we'll some orange, and then we'll do the same stencil over top of this, and hopefully get a neat layered effect, like a sunset. We do need to work a little fast because this paint is thin and it will dry quickly. Just gonna keep going. You can see this part here is pretty dry. Barely able to scrub that off. Okay, you see I've still got a little bit of space down here. Add a little bit of red. This will likely mostly be covered up by whatever we do next. It's gonna dry. Okay. Gotta grab this before it's too late. Now, I don't think it matters what stencil you use at this point. You're just building up a background, a backdrop for your lovely image, your lovely found image. So my wipe is done. Yeah, we're just going to give this a couple of minutes just to let it dry. I suppose I'll clean that. Bring your image back and just try to see where you might like to place it. I kind of decided I didn't really like all the blocks going all the way down, the little rectangles. Now it looks like a fire. Oy. see that my paint wasn't actually dry, so still able to get some movement there. I think I like that a little bit better. I think the red was just a little too intense for me after I saw my little flower girl on there. Right. Another drying time. So we know where we're going to place her. That I should have just left blocked off with white, because this is from such like a thin paper. You can really, you can see through the paper if I were to shine the light from underneath. And if you can see through it here, it will amplify a little bit. So let's do this. White. Almost looks like the head of an elephant. Let's do this. I don't normally clean my stencils, but you see I have a lot of extra paint on here, so I'm just smushing. I'm going to get the reverse image on here from the extra paint that the stencil had on it. And it's going to give us just a little bit more grunginess. And we'll probably have to clean the stencil because it's pretty thick on there. Okay, let's see. Kind of a mumbled junk. Excuse me. So she goes there. Once that white paint is dry. This is the hard part about doing intuitive art journaling, but not actually having a plan, since I'm not entirely sure what to do next. Let it dry before we move on to the next step. All right. So I think she'll go there. I don't know if I'm ready to plop her down. I might as well, right? So using your adhesive, matte medium or matte gel, just get this stuff down there. And want a nice coat. And we will be going over top of it, over top of the image with matte medium or matte gel as well. Grab our card again. I'm doing mine here so it's partly over both pages. I have to really make sure that that seam is in there and he's stuck down really well. And I'm just gently pushing the image down with the side of my card. Getting all or as many of the air bubbles out that I can. And when you see there are still some places that are lifting, just add a little bit more glue, matte medium, matte gel, whatever it is that you're using. You don't want the image to lift while we're working on it. And we would like minimum number of air bubbles. Some people will put very narrow cuts in their collage images just to give another opportunity for the air to escape. I find that a little bit tedious, and it's just my art journal. This is only for me, right? This is mine. Nobody else is going to see it. I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do, and neither do you. So again, I can see some of the air bubbles. Some of them are okay, and big poofy ones not so much, but you can really see the words coming up here, hey? And that's okay. This is a mixed media piece. And I will be going over these with white. That's what we're going to do. We're going to paint over this whole image, possibly, and just try to blend the edges of the paper in using the white acrylic. So this is still, the matte medium is still a little bit wet. So I'll just show you how I'm going to go in and around the edges and just using my fingers, really. Just working in around the edge of the image. And here where the balloon strings come out, I will go over those when I'm finished everything with a black pen. Just make my own strings. If I happen to cover them up with white, it's not a big deal. Because she's an ad for shampoo, she is just a skinny little thing. I might want to add some more flowers to her. I don't know. We'll see. Just to help build up the image. Maybe add more petals, just kind of floating around her. The does give that imagery of petals falling from her dress. So we're going to work with what we've got. I would love to see what you end up finding and repurposing for your art. This can be so relaxing and so therapeutic. When I'm just doing this for myself, I don't get terribly bothered by not having a plan. But I find when I'm recording for, public consumption, it does make me a little nervous. The what if gremlins, they come in loaded with all the negative stuff. That's just how it is. So if I make a mistake, I know there really aren't mistakes. I can do things I end up not liking, and that's okay. I'm not really doing art because I feel I have to like it. And that was something that took me a while to get my head wrapped around. So I'm not creating this art just because I want something pretty. I'm creating an extension of me, of who I am emotionally, or what I'm feeling, or what I'm perceiving the world is feeling. I mean, in some ways, you can see yesterday was Inauguration Day, so Joe Biden is now president, and Donald Trump has gone down to Florida. He pretty much left America on fire. All the divisions and hatred and emphasizing the differences in Americans, and instead of bringing unity and wholeness. And maybe it's just like a fresh start for America. And a lot of the world will still follow America wherever they go. So hopefully this will be a dawning of a new positive age across the world, where we can embrace our differences, not as something negative, but understanding that while we are all different, we are all still essentially the same. And that's really important. We need to focus on that sameness. Now, I do want to start incorporating the blue. I'm just letting some of this white acrylic around the edges dry. And in the image I have, you can see there's a very light blue in the background, and it does fade to near white all the way down. So I'm feeling the need to incorporate a blue sky, maybe from the bottom of her hair up, kind of, to help make those clouds, whatever, foam balloons pop. And these do. She's still a little bit too wet. Put a little dollop of brilliant blue on my little plastic palette thing. And I do want it to be quite watered down. I just want almost like a glaze. just a little bit. You don't want a lot. Even that, I feel like, is a lot. You can tell that my acrylic isn't quite dry, the white that I did around the image. It's actually making a really nice lighter blue, which is what I had in my head for the effect I wanted. I'm not sure if I'm going to bring a stencil into this cloud or into the sky background. I feel like I probably should. Now I'm just going to get some water on my finger and try to blend some of this blue down, just to have a little bit of color. Well, this is not working super great. It's not really showing the hearts very well. But guess what? No big deal, because we can go in afterwards and draw them if we want to have that as part of our image. Right? All right. Now again, she's going to need to dry a little. Oh dearie. See that I actually would consider a bit of a mistake, but we're just going to roll with it. That was me being careless, not really paying attention to what I was doing with the stencil. Just using my finger here with my white acrylic and just spreading around so we can try to cover up the text that's coming through. It's not super necessary, but kind of helping to make the image my own, and I would encourage you to do the same with the image that you've chosen to journal. I like that there's still dimension in these, like it's got the nice shadow from a foam, like a little mountain of clouds or something. So I'll want to try to bring that back in. And if you don't like getting your fingers dirty, you can use brush, you can use gloves if you want to have feel that connection to your page. I don't mind having painty fingers. I have an old tea towel that I just keep beside me, and when I remember, I'll wipe them down. So just lifting a little bit there. Grab a little bit of matte medium. Just rub it in. Don't want the image to wet. I'm not super worried about the paint that got on her we can cover a lot of that up with even with pencil crayons, it should be able to cover. So just gonna wait for this to dry. This is kind of having a really neat effect, though. I like how this just kind of, it's almost like she's splitting the background with her hope. She looks very hopeful and springy. Okay, I'm just gonna keep playing with this so I have a nice I don't know, not seamless, but so it's not so jarring. Like that blue there was quite rigid. I would like this to look a little bit more organic. Without a harsh line. Give it a hit of heat. As I was just drawing that, I'm feeling like the background is just too intense for her image. So I'm going to call back on my friend Jess, though. and put a light coat over top of the color because it just feels too intense. So I'm going to water it down a little bit, not too much, and just kind of scruff it in to tone down the vibrancy of that background. And we should still be able to see everything that we've already done. It kind of is a little translucent. Ay, ay, ay. Sorry about that, dropped my paintbrush. It's not a good thing. Splattered a little bit of gesso on my floor. Adding more water as you wish, depending on what, you might have different colors, you might not have this issue. Or maybe you're trying to work along with a similar image. Just remember, you're not always going to like what you create, and that is totally okay. As we sit here, think about what the image represents to you. If you've chosen a funny cat, for example, maybe you just want to laugh more. I know I definitely do. Feeling the effects of COVID-19 as far as isolating, not really going out, not doing our normal activities, not having board game nights and just hanging out with friends, right? I miss that laughter. So this image also, along with that, would help me feel like, you know, there's hope. There's hope for being able to gather again and having family and friends over for meals and games nights. It's coming. Slowly, but it's coming. Now, get this a little dry and see if it is toned down enough. I think that's all right. That's all right for now. I'm going to keep the for now. Because I might change my mind. I might decide I don't actually like that. Still a little tacky. We'll work on these cloudy balloons. So I'm going to grab my little stump of a Stabilo all pencil. Very water soluble. So I'm going to be able to smudge it and give it a nice shadow effect in here. Keeping in mind though, whatever we do next could create a big ol' gray smeary mess. Just have be mindful of that when you're using a stabilo all. So a very barely damp paintbrush will just activate that color. And just come in and kind of form our little clouds. Use your fingers to blend it. It's not, there it is. It's really easy to use, but also easy to make a total mess, as I have done in the past. If you need more water, just grab a little smidge more. We get so stuck up on having to have our stuff look a certain way or be a certain way. It's really quite freeing when you're working on something like this and just going with the flow. It doesn't matter what the end result is. If I found it therapeutic, for me, that's fabulous. And we also don't need to take a whole lot of time when we're working with a layout like this, right? It's still a little bit wet. Let's go back to what it had at the bottom. So there were a bunch of sketched in houses and towers and buildings. So we can do that as well. I'm trying to think what I would like to do that in. Could actually use the Stabilo All pencil. And just make some buildings. Shapes of them. Let's see. Got some funky things on some of them, and some are low and long. Good enough. So again, using a barely wet brush, I'll come back in and very quickly go over these lines. And with the extra stuff I have on, the extra color, I can add extra lines. Nice and light, and it can help give us, we can fill in some of the buildings so that they're a little bit gray. And if they're a little bit ombre, that's okay too. Come back in and draw some windows. You'll notice I didn't measure anything. I didn't use a ruler. That, for me, if I'm doing some art that somebody's paying me for, I may or may not use a ruler. But that's not the kind of art that I like to create. I like things to be imperfect. So don't get me wrong, there are times where I will use rulers to make sure proportions are right and things like that, if I'm really feeling it, but I often just go with the flow, thinking to myself, it's no big deal. This is just fun. And it helps me get over myself. Do you know what I mean by that? I'm not taking myself super seriously. I'm not taking my art journal super seriously. It's just a fun place for me to sit and be with my own thoughts. And hopefully that's something that you will enjoy as well. I do find it a little bit more difficult to art journal and talk. It's not normally what I do when I'm art journaling by myself, right? I don't talk to myself out loud. Sometimes I'll have a show playing on my screen in here, or have some music going, or maybe a meditation, a guided meditation. That can often be quite relaxing to do either right before or during arting. You know, it just helps give you another frame of reference, or it can trigger an idea in your mind that you would actually like to incorporate into your art journal. Let's find some more tiny windows. Not too bad. This building's in the back. It's going to be a little bit darker. My monitor just went off. I can't see what you see. Gotta wake it back up. There we go. Lots of room right here for a nice big saying. The building up here, it just felt really low compared to where my image is. Cool. And you can doodle and doodle and doodle as much as you want. Whatever you feel called to do down here. Now that I've said doodle, I'm just thinking that flowers actually would have been more me. So it's just green and flowery. All right. So again, gotta wait for this to dry. And if you are going to be doing any other wet media, wherever we've used the Stabilo All, because it's water soluble, we would need to seal it with something like workable fixative, which we can do. I've got some here, but I don't know that I will be using anything else that's super wet. What I will do though is use my heart stencil that I had tried to get in the blue here and just add some hearts, just kind of following in around here with the same blue. So I'm just going to dab it onto a makeup sponge, and I'm not going to get too worried here about whether or not it's bleeding through or anything. It's just to add a little bit more interest to the top part of the layout. And you can see I'm just kind of moving in through here at the diagonal. And in most cases, this might, you might have to go in and add a few more pieces to help everything look cohesive and not just like a giant one-off weirdness. So like up here, I'm going to add a few more hearts. And we will be able to go back in and add detail to these, whether I outline them with a white Uniball Signo pen, something like that would just help to give it, oh dearie, what's going on here? Just a little bit more definition. You can see that I'm going over already in other hearts that I had. And guess what? That's totally okay. How does that look? It's all right. Still a little bit too wet. It feels cold and almost tacky. I'm going to see if my Posca pen will work in here. So I'm just going to come in and make these hearts a little whiter. More of those guys in here, reminding us that love is everywhere and we're all equally deserving of love from others and from ourselves. And knowing that you have people in your corner can be really powerful. So I'm just making some little hearts tucked in here. They just kind of look like little V's when I make them. Where are we here? So if this paint would not have been dry enough, I would have wrecked my Posca pen. It's really important if you're going to use a Posca pen or a paint pen, that the layer you're going over is quite dry. Because this one is a really thick nib. It's a bit easier. This is a 5mm. If I were to use a finer point, like a 1mm, it might not be dry enough yet, and then I would gum up the nib, and it wouldn't work for me the next time I wanted it to. Mindful of little things like that. And if you're curious as to how I know, because I've made those mistakes, and I've ruined quite a few little Posca pens. And not just Poscas, other things too, because I was too impatient to wait. So now I'm a little better at embracing that impatience, that little burst of, I want to work on it now. I don't want to wreck my beautiful, loving art supplies. Even just having gone through and painted over these hearts that we're supposed to be showing the background through, I like that a little better. It does feel still a little bit stark over here. I'm not sure what to do with that yet. And that's okay as well. If I don't know what to do with it, that's okay. Here, I'm going to pull out my Derwent watercolor pencil in blue-gray. So again, this is a watercolor pencil, so very much like the Stabilo All. It will react with water, but because this is an ink tense pencil crayon, it does become permanent after it's been activated with water. So you don't have to worry about it quite as much as with the Stabilo All, but it will give us some nice definition and shadowing and shading in here. And I'm not going for a super realistic look, right? Like, she's a cartoon, she's an illustration, and we all know from watching years and years of cartoons and Looney Tunes and what have you, that cartoons often defy any and all laws that we have here in reality. So you just do you. If you want your image to be a little bit wacky and zany, go for it. If you just want to play with some paint and see what happens, do that too. You don't have to do anything. You can just play. And I think I've mentioned before, sometimes that's all I really have the energy for. I'm not feeling up to creating something from my own mind. It feels overwhelming or exhausting, or my brain just isn't working like it normally does. So it's okay to copy something. Go on Pinterest, see what you like, see what's calling to you that day, and then try it out. See what happens. I'm reaching for a very narrow black pen. This is a Micron, what are you? 01. So it's just going to help me recreate these balloon strings. Again, it's not super duper. I'll also go in and redefine the girl and her hair. That's totally okay. Maybe give her some knuckles there. Because a lot of these are still visible. I feel like I'm just kind of making a bit of a mess, but it's okay. There we go. Just find her. Oh, look, she's got a little belly showing. Teeny tiny little belly. Not even horribly bothered by that paint in her hair. I think I will leave it. I don't really know. I'm feeling a little bit stuck right now. Have to wait for inspiration to strike. Even for the quote here, I'm not sure what to what emotions I'm feeling when I look at this. I recently refound some of my, you know these, right? The little things that you see literally everywhere on social media. So I printed a bunch off to have as inspiration. Excuse me. Because you never know. You never know what's going to resonate with you on any given day. So I don't know. None of these are really hitting me, you know? And I've got a bunch of song lyrics too that I've printed out that have called to me. I don't think that I will find inspiration here. In which case, we can Google the Google. Here. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. Joan of Arc. So that might kind of fit with her. I am not afraid. I was born to do this. What can I do with that? Let me just see if that's really going to resonate with me. So I think before I was talking about in another video how when I first started art journaling, I wanted just to complete a layout, everything done like in one sitting, and how that's not really how life works. It's not very often that I will sit and complete in one sitting. And I'm feeling really strongly that that's what I need to do right now. I just need to finish this. Even though I've still got a lot of humming and hawing that I'm doing, right? Like I'm just not, doesn't quite feel done yet to me, if that makes sense. So I'm coming back in with a little bit more gesso. Again, I felt like the blue hearts were just a little bit too much. So I'll add the gesso and then I'll just scumble a little bit of it off. You can see it's already toned down these hearts compared to these ones. I think that's what I need, a little bit more of that calmness here. And it is okay to keep covering up the background. You know, one of the things that I see a lot on pages dedicated to beginners learning how to art journal is they fall in love with their background. And I remember going through a similar phase to that as well. Just thinking, well, I like it just as it is. And yeah, sure, that's totally fine. You know, I could have left a lot of my layouts exactly how they were. And some of them I did. I just threw on, you know, song lyrics over top of what I would consider now just to be a background. But that was my art journal layout. And that's kind of how we learn about our style and what speaks to us. And it's going to be different for each of us. And it's going to be different for us on any given day. There are days where I've been so full of emotion, I can't do much other than write out my very first and second layers, right? I'll write all over my journal page, and then I'll cover it up with collage and paint. And then I walk away. Like that's all I have right now. And that's okay, because that's exactly what I needed in that moment. And having the ability to come in and art journal whenever I'm feeling that maybe overwhelm or really strong emotions, I'm super grateful that I can just scribble some stuff on a page and do a quick cover up, right? It doesn't need to be a long 2 or 3 hour session. So that's what I would do if I were at a class, for example, learning a new technique. That's different. I don't art journal necessarily for the techniques. I'm art journaling to get something out of this, whatever that happens to be in that given moment. Cute. Don't know if I love it yet. Let's see. Words everywhere. So these are some sayings I found online. This one I printed off on my home printer, just using a variety of fonts. These are stamps that I've done. I just don't know what I'm feeling when I look at this image. I'm not normally this I'm not normally this indecisive. When I'm doing this. I've used these in a previous layout. Just a bunch of definitions. Live a little might be good. I like that one. So, again, these are things that I would do if I'm not feeling very well and don't have a lot of energy or don't mind being taken away from the task at hand, I would find some sayings online, pop them into another document, and make them more mine. Stamp a couple of images, a couple of quotes, things like that. Don't have to do this all at once because it can get quickly overwhelming, right? And if this is something that you enjoy doing and you want just to have some things, like these are infographics from online, right? I just printed them off, and if I'm looking for a quick affirmation, I can just check these out and see what is speaking to me at that point. And there's lots, so that's fabulous. And something as simple would be good on this page. Today is full of possibilities. I mean, this is a surreal image, right? Like, this one I think I'm going to do with a little, with an arrow. Because this is so not something that I would ever do in a million years. I'm just going to do a quick cut. Oh, there's stuff on the other side. Oh well. And I'm thinking some of these even might have come from my personal digital scrapbooking collection. I'm not sure. Because this is text, I will cut this. This is a little different than the image. It's going to be the top layer. It's okay if the edges stick out, and I will likely go back in with a marker of some kind to define the edges of the words. So, here we go. Getting these nice and straight-ish, I hope. What can we do? Live a little, maybe nice and up high. Maybe I'm going to cut the arrow off and draw some of my own arrows. That's what I'm going to do. Now that I've kind of decided on this, I actually feel like it fits quite well with what I've been feeling and experiencing with COVID restrictions and just being, we're all just out of our normal. We're all out of our routines. We're all feeling a little uncertain, possibly agitated about the future, because everything seems so very uncertain. Yeah. All right. I'm okay with this. Not an interesting process, my talk-throughs. No, I really didn't have a plan, but I think she's working out all right. So again, we're just going to put matte medium underneath and on top of our little quote. I'm trying to make sure they're not perfect. I don't want them to be perfect. I don't want them to be completely in line, straight, or any of that stuff, because I'm releasing my perfectionist tendencies here. Just give that a nice brush over. And then let it dry. And once it's dry, we can come back in and do a little bit more detail work. While I'm waiting for this to dry, I'm going to show you a little thing I worked on yesterday. So I put together this little piece of cardstock, and it was going to be horizontal, but I had this phrase here from when I did my Reiki training that I really wanted to incorporate into this. And when I had it laid out like this, I couldn't get the words to fit on very nicely, and I was very attached to my little background. So I just flipped it, and I ended up doing it vertical, and I don't love it, not gonna lie, because everything, like the shadows are down here, and different areas are covered that I wanted open. I have this beautiful feather here that has sparkles and glitter, and I love it. And my leaves, I really liked these leaves down here, but you know what? It's what we got. And it serves the same purpose. I've put my energy into this, and when I look at this, I'll remember a little story that went along with it, and letting go of expectations and things like that. Wait, still very wet. All right, what to do? Got a little Faber-Castell hit pen here. It is a brush. I'm just thinking about just giving these a light outline. My hand. And then using white on the blue parts for an outline, just to help them stand out a bit from the background. Just give them that little bit of definition. Really makes a difference to me. And then we choose to do something else, and that is totally all right. Because this is a brush tip, it's a little difficult for me, anyway, to control it. It's easy to make a line that's thicker than you had intended, or thinner than you had intended. So again, while you're going through this, just release your judgment and expectation around what you want it to look like. And if it's not perfect, that's all right. This is just a little exercise, a little creative play to help bring us back into ourselves and remind us that we are human. We make mistakes, and it's all good. We are all good. So I think those are all of my white hearts. Let's see if this one works. It looks pretty near to empty. This is my new ball signal in white. It's a little rough. lot of use when and it doesn't have to be every heart. It can be just, you know, 3, 4, or 5. If there's a faded one, you can still go over it. It won't matter. It'll help bring it into the layout. And hopefully you had a positive experience doing a little bit of creative play today. Where are we here? I feel like I'm going a little backwards. I'm getting my hand pretty dirty. And the phrase there is quite sticky still. So these are little details that I could doodle and doodle and doodle over and over again. So you can see that my white, it's not super white, it's just a little bit to help give those blue hearts a little pop. I'll give this a quick dry. Grab my dark indigo pen again. Oh, so carefully. The pens are a little smudgy before the ink dries. So you can get a nice heavy bottom and smudge it out a bit. So it just kind of gives a little bit of definition underneath your words. Soft definition, right? Like it's just a little smudgy, a little grungy. And then once it's dry, it is permanent. Yeah, I'm gonna call this one done and done. I don't know. I don't really feel like it needs too much more. Kind of going with it here. And create just a little bit more contrast here in these balloons. You see, I didn't really come up with a lot of stuff out of my own brain for this layout, right? Like, I chose the colors. The colors were quite different than the original ad. I didn't really have a plan. I just kind of intuitively created this. And that's all right. I'm going to call this layout done. Thanks for joining me. Live a little, whatever that means for you. Get out of your comfort zone. Make some new connections, and let me know if you follow along or create your own. Take a pic and post it on the link.